Honestly, I feel like today's video is gonna be relatively short, but that's something I say every time I make a video that ends up being like 15 minutes. So what do I know, right? But really, the thing is, we're gonna be talking about the M1 iPad Pro, specifically the 12.9, which honestly, it's an iPad. Like really, I don't know what else to talk about. Like I've had the 2018 iPad Pro since 2018, and even though this update does bring some pretty cool new features like the mini LED XDR display. We have some new cameras, which I could care less about. And because I previously had the 11-inch, the main upgrade here for me really is that it's 12.9 now, which we'll get into a little bit later with my thoughts on the size. Now, another thing I really want to address quickly is I told you all to wait. I said, don't buy this new iPad. And the only reason I didn't listen to that advice is I'm banking on WWDC. I'm banking on June 7th coming around and unleashing this M1 iPad Pro, because as of right now, and this video will demonstrate, is that this is just still an iPad Pro. It won't be until we see the software unleashed. You're gonna see this across YouTube. You're gonna see this in probably every review that you watch about this iPad. It's a great iPad because the iPad has always been great, and this is no exception. It's just that now we have all this horsepower, this M1 chip, the same M1 chip that I've raved about on this channel, the same M1 chip that's in that iMac behind me. Like, that is absolutely crazy, but everything that you do with this iPad right now is still just iPad things. So everything I love about the iPad is here now, a little bit bigger with a little bit nicer screen, right? But is that worth this upgrade? Absolutely not. If you already have pretty much any iPad from the last few years, not even the iPad Pro, if you have an iPad Air, if you have an iPad just like an old one, if you have an iPad from like 3-4 years ago, if you have an iPad from 5 years ago, I'm sure it's still fine to do iPad things. But like I said, I'm banking on this WWDC. I'm banking on Craig coming out and saying, hey, look, we have Mac apps now on iPad. We've made it easier than ever for developers to port their Mac apps to the iPad, unleash all of this M1 power, and unleash this Thunderbolt port that's on this thing too. I just think all the writing is on the wall that WWDC might show us what this thing is actually capable of. But you should never buy something based on an unknown. I'm only doing that because I'm a jackass on YouTube. You, the consumer, you can wait. You can wait till June 7th. You can wait to see if this thing will actually be worth it, because like I said, right now, it's just an iPad. Now, that doesn't make it bad. If this is your first iPad, I think this is actually a really nice iPad. It's the most iPad the iPad has ever been. I'm someone that's always criticized the 12.9-inch iPad as being too big, and my sentiment has not changed having owned one now. This thing is massive. Now, because we live in this world right now where most of us are working from home, and I'm someone who works freelance, and I could see myself working from home for the foreseeable future, even after all of this craziness calms down. And just like the 12 Pro Max, I feel like I'm a little bit okay with the size of this thing because I'm not traveling and I'm not bouncing around with it. It's something that I'm just using at home. So the size really hasn't been that terrible. I do think the 11-inch is the perfect size iPad. That's the one that I had previously, and I just think as an iPad, it's a perfect size. So really, I would look more at the iPad Air still, because that's a lightning fast iPad and the screen size is perfect. But there is a couple reasons why I also still like this 12.9. And like I said, because I'm at home and I'm watching movies and stuff, this thing looks absolutely spectacular. The new mini LED display is very, very nice. That being said, it's only nice really when you're watching HDR content or Dolby Vision content. In regular day-to-day use, just looking at photos and stuff like that, I gotta be honest, I can't really tell the difference between my 2018 11-inch and this new M1 2021 version. It's only when you load up a movie, like if I'm watching Interstellar or something like that, coupled with AirPods Max and spatial audio and this giant screen in Dolby Vision mini LED, I gotta admit, it is a very, very nice viewing experience. And again, this all kind of goes back to this whole thing of like this being a really, really nice consumption device. But all I'm hoping for is when WWDC comes around, it's a consumption device and a creation device. Because when I am traveling, instead of having to bring a laptop with me, I would love to have this iPad Pro with me. Because when I travel, I'm still working because I'm freelance. So there's often times when I'll be somewhere else in the world and I'll have to open up a Final Cut project and make a change, make an edit. And the fact that I can't do that with the iPad right now means I still have to bring a laptop with me. So I just want Final Cut and other pro apps on this iPad for that specific use case scenario, because I want to be able to sit in my hotel room and, watch Interstellar and Dolby Vision with my AirPods Max and spatial audio. But I also want that same device to be the device that I check my email on and the device that I can quickly make edits to a client project all in one, and not bring an iPad and bring a MacBook Pro. That's why I just want some continuity between my Mac experience and the iPad experience. So yeah, you should wait. You should 100% wait till WWDC. Right now, it's just a good iPad. And if it's your first iPad, I would probably say grab the 11-inch. I still think the 12.9 is too big. Even with all the advancements of mini LED, maybe you could justify it being a little bit more future-proof, but it's just too big. I really think it's too big of a device. And if you don't know any better, if you've only really had an 11-inch or used the 11-inch, you're not missing anything. There was never a moment where I thought the 11-inch was too small. In terms of performance, look, I use an iPad to do iPad things like watch movies and read tweets and email and stuff. And so really it just hasn't changed from my experience with the 2018 model. I guess if you do some really extensive, heavy work, you could see some benefits from this M1 chip in day-to-day things, editing photos, whatever. But for me, I just don't do that stuff with my iPad. And I'm pretty sure a lot of users don't do that stuff with their iPad either, even if they are professionals. That's why it's just always gonna come back to, if they bring Mac apps, if they bring some more continuity between the Mac experience and the iPad experience, so there's a better handoff between the two, I'm hyped for that. Lastly, the only thing I would say is if you're someone who has a desktop, if you have an iMac or a MacBook Pro, this 12.9 inch is actually just a really nice external display because you're kind of getting an Apple Pro display in this 13-inch kind of variation. So if you're someone who just sidecars Final Cut Pro, it's a nice way to do your color grading on this mini LED screen because it's probably one of the most accurate displays that you can buy at this price point. That's also a tablet, so if you needed to do other things, you can kind of move around. I even tested Sidecar by going downstairs using the peripherals that are connected to my Mac Mini, so it was kind of like having Final Cut on an iPad, except you're kind of stuck within the range of whatever your Sidecar device is. But just experiencing that made me realize how much I do want these pro apps on this iPad because it is such a beautiful screen, and I could see being in coffee shops, being in hotel room lobbies, getting work done on the fly. It's just so much nicer to have a tablet than a MacBook Pro because, again, it's such a great consumption device when you're out traveling and being mobile too. And even just around the house, it's just such a nice way to read things, read the news, check your email, check Twitter, all that. It's my favorite consumption device, and I just want that same device to have some creation functionality beyond whatever is in the App Store currently for iPad OS. So in a nutshell, yeah, wait till June 7th. It's a nice iPad. If it's your first iPad, grab the 11-inch. It's cool that it has the M1 chip in it, but for now, it's a nice iPad Pro, but it's not really an iPad Pro just yet. You can see that I have this M1 iMac behind me as well in glorious yellow. I've built a new little studio setup here for it too. And if you want to see a video on this computer, I haven't fully decided how I want to showcase it yet or what I want to talk about. I'm still kind of working out how it fits into my life. But if you do want to see that video and if you have any questions about it, let me know in the comments. And if you have any questions or comments about the iPad Pro, specifically the 12.9-inch one, let me know and we'll have a little discussion or a chat about it. But otherwise, I'm Patrick Tomasso. I hope you enjoyed this video and you'll see or hear me next time I feel like making a video. Cheers.